Sprouts. When did sprouts go from being the most feared, loathed vegetable to this thing that we must order at every restaurant we go to? Or at least I do. I love Brussels sprouts and those Brussels sprout salads. But let's talk about sprouts. In England, we just call them sprouts. I never called them Brussels sprouts until I came to America. But anyway, it is a member of the cabbage family. Very popular in Belgium. No surprise there. That's why they're called Brussels sprouts. But they first appeared in Northern Europe in the 5th century. Although the first time they were mentioned in literature was in 1587. I wonder what they said about them. Anyway, they grow best because they started in Europe. It's because they grow best at temperatures when the climate is between like 45 and 75 degrees. Have you ever seen them? Oh, what sprouts look like when they grow? They're kind of on this long, thick stalk, and they're like bulbs along the side. If you haven't seen them, anyway. The harvest season is usually between September and March, so that's why they are more of maybe a traditional winter vegetable, although obviously now we see them all year round. You might have seen the purple ones. How did they get that? The purple ones, they actually took the purple cabbage and they bred them. Not that you can breed a sprout, but I guess they would cross-pollinate them with a regular sprout, and they got these purple sprouts. And they are meant to be a little bit sweeter. I can't say I've even tried a purple sprout. So Europe started this whole thing. The Netherlands being the number one producer, followed closely, well, not even close, but half as many by Germany. Now, I'm English. The UK actually produce as many sprouts as the Netherlands, but they don't export them as much. So they're just a bigger producer, but they're not a big exporter because they keep them all, which would explain why I was fed so many sprouts when I was a kid. What about America? North America arrived here in the 18th century. The French brought them over. They brought them in through Louisiana. In the 1920s, they started, the climate, they started actually planting them in California. And California is still where most of the production takes place. That I'm talking more about the damper, foggier, more temperate climate of the Central Coast, like Santa Cruz and Monterey type of way. Although there are some sprouts that are grown in Washington and New York, and Mexico is getting in on the deal now because there's such a demand for them. So Mexico are getting in because they can then have this year-round supply. But most of the American market actually goes to the frozen food industry. It's not like it's a big export commodity. So why the heck did it get so popular, right? Who the hey was eating sprouts? Well, what happened was a Dutch scientist called Hans, of course he was called Hans, a Dutch scientist called Hans van Doorn, is that how you say it? He figured out what it was that made Brussels sprouts bitter. That's how I remember them as a kid. And what he did is he found that there was a chemical compound called, I've got to read this, spruitjes, spruitjes. Spruitjes? Is that how you say that? Anyway, that was the chemical compound that was making the Brussels sprouts bitter. So what they did, they went on this searching through the archives of Brussels sprouts and found the ones that had less of this spruitjes in them. And they found the varieties that had less of this bitter tasting compound. And so they cross-pollinated these with the new ones, and we have these better tasting sprouts. So at first, people had to be talked into, ordering them. Maybe you can relate to that. But then, they got super, super popular to the point at which the farmers in the Netherlands were making 5 times what they'd originally made on their crops, and the actual crop area has increased by about 4 times. So super, super, super popular, the Brussels sprouts. What's good about them? 86% water, 9% carbs, 3% protein. Don't count that protein. Sprouts are part of the cruciferous vegetables and they contain sulforophane. If you haven't seen my video on sulforophane, let me know. It's pretty good. But it's also about 10 minutes long. Sulforophane is what makes cruciferous vegetables so great as a breaking down excess hormones and detoxifying the liver and all that good stuff. But I'll just leave it at this. You won't get sulforophane from the powdered green stuff. You have to chew it. It has to be mechanically broken down to be active. So that's why you should eat your vegetables and don't use that green powder. Anyway. Boiling Brussels sprouts will reduce the sulforophane, so you don't want to do that. But you can steam them and frying and you'll be good to go. What else did I want to tell you? Oh, if you're taking blood thinning medications, don't eat too many of them because they do have a lot of vitamin K. Let's talk about calories. So 1 cup of Brussels sprouts, 38 calories. Go for your life. However, you know, those Brussels sprouts that we're eating when we go out don't taste like just plain old Brussels sprouts that I remember as a kid. So let's look at this. Cheesecake Factory. If you go to Cheesecake Factory, the Brussels sprouts there, so a serving of those, which is not a cup, is 228 calories, which with 10 grams of protein, 18 carbs and 15 grams of fat. Obviously, they're cooked in all sorts of stuff and bacon, blah, blah, blah. Ruth Chris. We love Ruth Chris. We are always at Ruth Chris. But I don't order Brussels sprouts, and this is why, because I did my research. 520 calories were a serving of Ruth Chris. 7 grams of protein, 27 grams of carbohydrates, 20 grams of sugar. And wait for it, 45 grams of fat. This is why people struggle. If you just go out and eat Brussels sprouts and you don't do your research, this is... Okay, so let's go on to Whole Foods. Whole Foods, you know, you get the ready-made ones. They're not too bad. 110 calories per serving with 17 grams of carbs and 3.5 grams of fat. I eat those with my blessings. Anyway, that's Brussels sprouts. I hope you enjoyed that. I'm going to pick a few. I think I'm going to do beetroot next. Let's do that. Anyway, that's it for now.